Oh, thank you so much, Steve. Hi, everybody. I know it seems a long time ago. Happy New Year. I hope that people's Januaries are going okay, aside from the fact that it's bloody dark and bloody cold. Today I'm going to be presenting on TTRPG safety tools that I've been using in my teaching for the past few years, and then started to realise that there's kind of more to this than me just being kind of cute about it. So just sharing the slides there. Hopefully those will pop up. People give me like a thumbs up or something if you can see them. Awesome, thank you so much. Just to clarify, in the chat there should be there's two things. There's a link to the public view of the slides if you want to view them on Canva itself. There's also a PDF copy of the slides as well if you'd like it in PDF format, and just put a little content note in the chat which I'll reiterate in these, that there is a brief mention of domestic violence, but we don't go into any sort of gory details. It's just for an example to work through. So let's crack on. There we go. Okay, it's dancing now. There we go. Okay, so just take you through briefly. Probably going to chat for 15-20 minutes, no more than that. But also there's stuff for you to do as well. I've got a little activity for you to think about towards the end of this. We're going to find out what safety tools are, why I think they're important in teaching, how they're used in TTRPGs first of all, because the reason I got onto them was because I started using them in D&D games that I run for my friends, and then started using them, realized I was using similar techniques in the classroom and thought there's crossover there and I want to explore this. We'll consider some examples of what safety tools looks like. It's not an exhaustive list because there's so much, but I will provide a slide with resources towards the end, so you can go and have a look at the places where they're discussed in TTRPGs. I want to consider some student feedback as well. I've had some really nice feedback from my students on this, so they're definitely recognizing that this is a deliberate thing I've been using in the classroom, and for a lot of students it seems to have worked in terms of making them feel comfortable and safe and included. And then I've got an activity for all of you, which you are free to participate in. You're also free to refuse, I don't mind, but to consider which safety tools you might want to use in response to a scenario that I'll give, and to post some suggestions in the chat. Like I said, that's optional. Please do feel free to participate in that if you would like. And then to close out with questions, comments, reflections, we'll have a look at the contributions in the chat, and then I'll close out and open the floor to discussion for feedback and comments from everybody. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm a person. This is a screen cap I took on my lecture a while back. Realised that the captions really read me to filth on how I talk in my lectures. But yeah, I'm a person. I'm best known amongst my peers for having two cats. Bellamy is the sort of tiramisu coloured one, and Jaeger's the little white one, who is actually much bigger now because he's grown considerably. But I have two cats, Bellamy and Jaeger. I'm also known for being part of Laws of Drag. I'm one of the founding members of the Laws of Drag network. So if you're interested in the connections between law and drag and the work we're doing there, please come and ask me. I'd love to talk about it with you as well. And in terms of various nerdy interests, because I know this is a safe space for nerds, I'm super into Pokemon, longest log affair of my life. I play a lot of D&D. I play a lot of Genshin Impact. And I've recently got back into Yu-Gi-Oh! In a big way. My partner and I were just at a sealed pack launch event over the weekend, in addition to going to Pagan Fest, where we saw various bands like Tyr and Hailstorm, and it was cool. So safety tools I'm going to be using in this session. These are for me that I'm saying that apply to you to help you to feel comfortable in this. So content note for this session, just to reiterate, there's a mention of domestic violence, but no further details beyond mentioning it. Please ask me questions at any time. Stick your hand up using the tool in MS Teams and then speak, or type your question in the chat. I'll do my best to keep an eye on it. And if I don't get around to them while I'm talking, I'll definitely address them towards the end. Absolutely no judgment from me on what you ask. I really want to know what you think and want to help. I won't ever pick on you to speak as well. So if like we get to questions at the end and no one's putting their hand up, I won't just like call someone's name out. I don't do that. But if I do ask a question and you want to contribute, please feel free to speak by obviously using your voice or using the chat. Please take a break if you need it. You are not committed to this, to sitting all the way through this session with me. You don't need my permission. You don't need to give a reason. And if you feel affected by anything that we cover in this session, please do seek support. I normally recommend areas for people to go and get support from this, but I appreciate we're from all different institutions and things. But first of all, family and friends are a good place to seek support as well. But if you think of any specific things, please feel free to talk to me or anybody who you trust with your well-being from this. And so this example of how I might also use safety tools when I'm starting a class as well. But these are for this session. Okay, so in terms of what safety tools are, it's a technique that's used to help participants in an activity feel comfortable and accommodated for. And primarily these have been developed in gaming, and I'll go on to talk briefly about how they've been used in TTRPGs. But we also might use them as participants in research. We talk about things like where people can withdraw from research if they want. We might signpost people who are research participants to certain support services, depending on the kinds of people that we're working with. It also applies in the classroom. Particularly if we're teaching topics that can be quite uncomfortable for students. So safety tools do all manner of things. They help us identify potentially upsetting or difficult content. If we take a moment to stop and reflect on what we're talking about, we'll start to identify things that might affect other people in different ways. We can make our participants aware of that content, and we can then equip our participants with ways to inform us of their needs and take action to help themselves feel safe as well. So I've seen people do this in various ways, and I certainly started by saying, oh, there's some upsetting content, but then didn't give any sort of follow-up. So safety tools help us to kind of support people through that process of recognizing when there's things they might find difficult in their learning experience, and then what they can do as well. And the final thing is that to complete that sort of feedback loop, to give feedback on the safety tools so we can continue to improve. So it's not a one and done thing. Like so many things when we're doing education, there's always room for improvement and to make them better. So in terms of why we need them, I understand I've had a little bit of pushback from people I've talked to this about before, being like, it's critiques of like snowflake generation or whatever. And I don't mind. I'm proud of being a snowflake. I'm a sensitive little bean, and I feel like making people feel safe even when we're addressing challenging subjects is certainly worthwhile. So in terms of the why, my justification is fairly simple in that many of our students and colleagues will have had experiences that make encountering certain topics or doing certain activities upsetting for them. Some things they may be well aware of and know this in of themselves, and for some people they're just experiencing this for the first time. So something I think about quite a lot for this was doing in-person exams. I used to be an exam invigilator and administrator over the summers when I was doing my PhD and couldn't get money from teaching, so I would help out with the exams, and I quickly became part of the special circumstances team, and a lot of times realizing that excuse me, apparently going to a concert and being in a warehouse with people for several hours might have made me a little bit ill over the weekend. That students would become incredibly anxious for the first time actually during the exam thing, so they'd not realized before that they struggle with anxiety in a particular way. And so might have some people that are very self-aware of what things they find difficult or upsetting and what may trigger that, and some people who are experiencing it for the first time. We need to recognize that people are different and make sure that we're not deliberately causing upset with the materials and topics that we cover. I'm not necessarily advocating that we kind of sanitize and make all of our material cuddly and stuff like that. I teach criminal law, right? So by nature, that is a core topic on the law degree that I teach on. And it is, I think, even if it weren't a mandatory thing to talk about, criminal law is nevertheless an important subject because it affects people in all sorts of different ways. And I often say we need law like we need medicine. We need to understand it because it affects everybody pretty much all of the time. So criminal law, by necessity, we cover a range of criminal offences in cases with unpleasant details. So sometimes we have to teach the upsetting and uncomfortable content. What we can do then is help our students, use safety tools to help our students learn about these issues in a way that is comfortable to them, or is as comfortable as possible, and not be subject to any unnecessary stress or trauma or anxiety as a result of looking at these subjects. So in terms of how safety tools are used in TTRPGs, the kind of origin point that got me thinking about this, mainly the point of safety tools in tabletop role-playing games is to establish the rules of collaborative play. So those could be things like table etiquette, respect for other players and the game master at the table, what's permitted within the game and what isn't in terms of darker themes and topics. And as I said in my abstract, we see this very often in games that tend to have more mature or darker themes like Vampire the Masquerade or Blades in the Dark, the very infamous Curse of Strahd module in Dungeons and Dragons. And it's an opportunity for the table to come together prior to play to say what they're comfortable with, what they're not, how far they're willing to explore certain topics, scenarios, dynamics, that kind of thing. And then these should be implemented without judgment as well. So, for example, in my own game, one of my players asks for no pictures of spiders. I personally don't have a problem with pictures of spiders, but it's not for me to kind of poo-poo their concern and what they need. That's fine. We implement these without judgment. People have different limits, and there's no point making one person uncomfortable just because they're the only one that has a particular worry or concern. So when we're playing then, the tools agreed upon can be used to do things like pause the game, change the direction of the game if they feel it's going a direction they don't want, empower a player to articulate when they're feeling uncomfortable. A lot of people do enjoy games with dark and mature themes. There's a reason why the games like Dark Souls and Bloodborne, Castlevania are all like really, really popular. Some people like feeling scared. Some people enjoy exploring dark themes, but they want to be able to do so safely, which is completely fair. Games are meant to be a form of escape and enjoyment from the real horror of the world, which is capitalism. So in my own D&D game that I run, it's themed on Castlevania, or affectionately referred to by my players as D&D-vania. Some of the safety tools we use are lines and veils, where we talk about what are hard lines and what's completely off the table that we just don't cover in the game at all. Veils in terms of topics we're a bit uncomfortable with, but we don't mind covering a bit. We use content warnings. We have a WhatsApp chat that's open at all times that I monitor while I'm running the game, that people can message me privately if they're uncomfortable, they want the game to stop. Anyone can call a break, not just the game master, and we debrief afterwards as well. So if there's anything particularly heavy in the session, we go over it afterwards, we talk openly with each other, that kind of thing. I listed resources on the second to last slide of this. They're also available in the, say, public link and the PDF if you want to have a look at some people have written much more articulately and in more depth about individual safety tools than me. So examples of some safety tools that we might use. So first of all, we might, when we're bringing these into the classroom, or to our game table, have a list of subjects that are potentially triggering or upsetting. And again, you can search for find lists of these if you're not sure as a kind of starting point. But really, when we're teaching, picking apart our material and thinking about, is there something that could happen in someone's life that make this difficult? So criminal law, there's a lot of obvious things across the subjects that I teach, but I also teach land law because I'm a complex and curious being. And in land law, I teach stuff that I don't think, a lot of it may not be particularly triggering or upsetting, but then I'm also like, well, I teach about evictions. I teach about relationship breakdowns and assets being split between people. And if somebody has been through that or knows people that have been through that, of course, that could be really triggering or upsetting about it. I know, and when I teach tenancy law, I just feel unyielding rage because of the experiences that I've had with landlords in the past. Another thing that I do in terms of safety tools are different options for students to ask questions. And this is where safety tools kind of run into inclusivity as well, right? So like I've tried to implement that today in this session by saying you can speak if you would like, raise your hand and speak, or you can put questions in the chat for me. Same way, different options for students to ask questions. So I might say to them, of course, in class you can raise your hand, you can speak in front of the group. If you don't want to do that, I will be going around in smaller groups. So you can ask me at that point. You can talk to me one-on-one. I'll leave 5 minutes at the end of the session, so you can come and talk to me one-on-one. You can email me. Different options to accommodate different levels. It could be for the way they want to ask questions generally, or that they only want to ask questions about that content in particular ways. Content notes we covered before to let students know in advance potentially triggering or upsetting content. A lot of students will be fine if they know that content is coming up, but find it much harder. It can really sideswipe people, make them feel really uncomfortable if it's just sprung on them. If they have a pre-warning, a lot of people tend to be able to deal with it. Or also it helps them make the decision that maybe they need to come back to a recording of this, or discuss, if it's a small group teaching, maybe discuss it one-on-one or via email with the tutor instead of being in a group setting. I use an open door policy. This lets students know they can leave if they need without permission or explanation. This is especially useful for tackling the kind of high school mentality a lot of students in, where they feel like they need a hall pass or to tell you why they're leaving the room. I try to establish this thing of we're grown-ups. If you need to go to the toilet, if you need to leave to have 5 minutes because you're feeling a bit overwhelmed by the subject matter, you don't have to ask me. It's not for me to judge why you need to step out. It's fine. And again, establish these parameters of etiquette and respect in the classroom. You could also use things like N, X, and O cards to use to indicate different levels with subjects in learning. This is what I want to personally implemented yet, because I don't want to overwhelm students with too many things, but it's about having options that you could use. So N, X, and O all depict different things. And now I'm forgetting off the top of my head what they actually mean, but I think X is definitely for stop. And then debriefing as well, telling students how they can seek support if they need it after the session. And I say it includes, usually we've got these university resources. You can come talk to me, your tutor, friends, family, that kind of thing. So they're left with some tools to follow up if they do feel affected, and letting them know that it's okay to feel affected by these things as well. So in terms of student feedback, I've had some really nice feedback from students, and this is sort of collating the most recent stuff from last year. Students saying that they felt really seen, that they really recognized I was trying to create space for everyone at the table, and trying to make my work inclusive for students of all kind of like different learning approaches, and queer spaces and safe spaces. I'm a neurodivergent queer person, and I try and create the space that I want for people like me to flourish. Another student said she makes it known she's more than happy to help and never judges if we struggle, includes everyone, make sure to speak respectfully, and make sure everyone's comfortable speaking, gaining opinions. Makes a point not to pick on people during seminars, which is someone with anxiety I genuinely appreciate. Accommodating for people. People participate quite a lot in the seminars. And more recently in December, from some feedback from a second year module that I taught, make you feel safe in the session. So this stuff is being noticed by students. That's what I'm taking from this, is stuff is being noticed by students, it's appreciated by them, and they're really getting some benefit from this. And it all comes from starting to use the tools to build that culture. Okay, so over to you. So this is just an activity, and again, literally five minutes, if that. I want you to have a little think. Your scenario is that you're delivering a small group teaching session to 15 students. The seminar content then includes a case study which involves a situation of domestic violence, but we don't have any more than that. Just the topic, it includes that. And activities that include students working together to create an infographic on the relevant law that applies. And the activity is that one student from each group will then explain the infographic they've created to the class. The class is scheduled to last 90 minutes from 11:30 till 1 o'clock. So what I would like you to do, 5 minutes, have a think amongst yourselves, to identify at least one issue that might require a safety tool, what safety tool you might want to use, and why, and post in the chat. Just give me a couple of bullet points. So yeah, please take a couple of minutes on that. And I will also need to stop sharing because I can't see the chat whilst I'm sharing. Oh, can I? I can. There we go. Yeah, awesome. Cool, got people starting to post. Brilliant, thank you. And I'll give it a couple more minutes. I'll just give you sort of 26 minutes past 12. We're on 12:23 now, so another 3 minutes. And then on my next slide, I've got a prompt for going over our response in the chat. Thank you to people who have already started posting. Okay, just one more minute. Okay, right. Thank you so much to everybody who has. Oh, oh dear, why is this going backwards? Oh, best laid plans and all that. There we go. So in terms of results from the chat, thank you. People put so many excellent things in the chat, so I really appreciate it. Thank you. So we've got a couple of things suggesting like a warning of the content, the pre-sessional material. Yep, signposting to discuss with the tutor beforehand, potentially. Absolutely, a content note on domestic violence. Yeah, and in this case, if there were specific issues, yeah, absolutely, that we might point to give adequate warning, ensuring that students know that they can leave at any point. Yes, absolutely, give an additional warning. And again, if this is useful, this adds to the point of the pre-sessional material as well, that students should be able to access what that case study is. So they could have a look at it in advance and not spring it on them. Yeah, considering people might have personal experience of domestic violence, excellent. Warnings pre-session, brilliant. Opportunity to opt out or contact the tutor separately. Awesome. Telling students they don't have to share personal experience is absolutely huge. Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes I am kind of very open about my experiences with intimate partner violence and stuff. But I say to students, yeah, just because I'm willing to be open, no obligation for them at all. Links to resources students need extra support. That's fantastic. Public speaking element could cause anxiety. Absolutely right. And so there's this interesting thing of trying to balance this development of student skills with this with also like creating an inclusive environment as well. So yeah, absolutely get the thing of being like it's a voluntary thing. People aren't randomly picked on to do it. Absolutely. And also I try to with the public sort of more public speaking elements of it as well. I say to them like you don't have to come to the front, you can just present from your table, it's fine, that sort of thing. So try and give opportunities to develop speaking skills without it being really formal. We've got a content warning on DV with yet more specific indications. Excellent. Invite people to contact the tutor in advance. Excellent stuff. And then reminders, I think, as well. That's the other thing. Yeah, once we get to class, have a reminder of those things that they can do to keep themselves safe, and leave those links to resources being available. And then finally, yeah, students being aware of the open door, support after the session, and then yes, if anyone does find that they have to leave, definitely try and follow up with that individual student just to check in with them as well. Amazing. Thank you so much for all your suggestions. Those are absolutely phenomenal and exactly along the right lines. There's obviously like a amount of other things we could do. The other thing that on a slightly sort of less serious note as well, like the timing was deliberate as well. Like our uni has a habit of scheduling 90-minute seminars over lunchtime. And so I'd also say to some of my students, like, if you need to bring your food with you, go for it. I'm also ragey about the fact that it's lunchtime on a slightly more kind of informal note as well. But yeah, you've all commented exactly really super appropriate, brilliant things for looking after our students in those kinds of sessions. So in terms of reading reflection, I hope you've got lots of comments and questions as well, but these are still some of the things that I'm thinking about is reflecting on things that I've found surprising and interesting, and I'd be interested to hear your reflections on this as well. Thinking about which safety tools might be the most useful for you to use in your own discipline, because I appreciate it's not necessarily just law in here, although I spot a lot of lawyers, and potential limitations of using safety tools as well. I'm very aware that kind of one thing that might be beneficial for one group of students can actually be very limiting for another group of students as well. So I'm trying to think about more about what potential limitations of these things are, including calling safety tools. I don't actually like the name safety tools that much. I just haven't got a better name for it yet as well. So some points for like that we could potentially reflect on as a group, but also things I'm thinking about for myself going forward. These are the resources that I've used in building this. A lot of these are all written by people in TTRPG spaces. Some are available as like downloadable Google Docs, some are available as downloadable PDFs, and some are on personal blogs and websites as well. But some of these are really, really interesting, and the amount of thought they put in is absolutely phenomenal. It just remains me to say thank you so much. I really appreciate your contribution and you taking the time to come to the session, and I'm really looking forward to having a discussion with everybody. So thank you.